back, everybody, to the Sundowners Club. House of the Dragon, Season 2, Episode 1, titled A Son for a Son, has debuted on HBO Max. And there are some Easter eggs in the episode. And there's also some things that you might have missed that we're going to talk about right now. So let's get into it. So we've waited 2 years for Season 2 of House of the Dragon to premiere. And as we open up the episode, we get a familiar place and a familiar theme. We have a raven that flies its way into the grounds of Winterfell, and it harkens back to the early seasons of Game of Thrones, a lot of nostalgia, and we hear Cregan Stark for the first time narrating, and he's talking about themes that in this particular episode, if you're paying attention, they're common throughout the episode, and it's around duty and sacrifice. And Cregan says, duty is sacrifice. It eclipses all things, even blood. All men of honor must pay the price. Now, we're going to keep that in mind as we look to what happened throughout this episode of Season 2 of House of the Dragon. While we're talking about House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 1, make sure to leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. Smash the like button, hit the notifications bell for future content, and hit the subscribe button so we can continue to grow our channel. And but it was certainly great to go back to Winterfell, and then we make our way to the Wall as we saw a tradition that we didn't know about before, and it's one that he mentioned that Torrhen Stark implemented through the House of Stark, where 1 in 10 would draw stones to pick who was going to have the honor of going to serve with the Night's Watch at the Wall. And so pretty cool little Easter egg and a glimpse into the past there, something we really didn't know before. And we get to the Wall, and we've got Jace and we've got Cregan, and they're talking about the war that's going on. We also have the theme, and this is one of the first Easter eggs that you may have missed. We have the theme playing of Goodbye Brother. And for those of you that might not remember, that is the theme that played when Jon Snow left to go join the Wall, and he said goodbye to Robb Stark, and they never saw each other again. And it's really a nice touch that they put into the show, because at that moment you have Cregan and Jace building the alliance and strengthening the alliance with Team Black, and he gets a raven, and we know that in the raven it's going to be telling Jace that his brother Lucerys has been killed. And so the theme of Goodbye Brother really tied in the two stories of Jason, Luke, and Jon Snow and Robb Stark. Very well done. Something that you may have missed. You know, once we leave Winterfell and then go to the Night's Watch, we're not there very long. And that's one of my criticisms of this first episode. I feel like we could have spent some more time at either Winterfell or the Wall. And it was over in a snap of the finger. And so one of the things I would have liked to have seen him spend a little bit more time and let that flesh out, especially since Cregan mentioned that King Jaehaerys and Alysanne were at the Wall at that very location, and her dragon did not refuse to go beyond the Wall. So thought that was very interesting that they put that nugget in there that readers of the books know, but very interesting that they decided to put that in the show. And so, you know, then we cut to Rhaenyra, and she's looking at Storm's End. She's not found her son's body or remains or the dragons. She's got tears in her eyes, but she looks weary. She looks angry, doesn't say anything, but she's just staring off and portraying a lot of emotion, and thought that was really, really cool that they chose to show that, you know, as we're kind of seeing Rhaenyra going through a period of mourning. Then we get the docks at Driftmark, and this is another Easter egg. We meet a character for the first time named Alan, and he is repairing Lord Corlys's ship to get back out and seize the gullet and cut off some of the shipping lanes so that they can, you know, basically force King's Landing into submission. And as they're talking, you sense that there's a little bit of a bond between Corlys and Alan. And Corlys references that he was pulled out of the water and saved by Alan, that he owes him a debt. And Alan also references that he will get the ships back in working order quickly and will get with his brother. So a little bit of an Easter egg. Keep in mind and pay attention to the character of Alan of Hull and the mention of his brother, which we will see later on this season. Might want to keep those names in the back of your head as the story moves forward. But it was a really good scene with Corlys and Alan of Hull. You know, kind of that layer building, that character building that Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon is famous for. And again, another character that we've seen develop in this show is Helena, and she is at King's Landing, and she's knitting. What she's knitting, you'll have to wait and see in a future episode. But King Aegon walks in, and he asks for Jaehaerys. He wants to bring his son to the small council meeting, and that's one of the first scenes that we've gotten where the character of Aegon is really developed. We're seeing more to him, that the two sides, the greens and the blacks, are not as far away as you might think in terms of maybe who to root for, who's in the right, who's in the wrong. We see Aegon trying to be a good father, which really, let's be honest, was Viserys a good father to Aegon? Didn't seem like he was in season 1, but Aegon is trying to be a good father to Jaehaerys, and he brings him to the small council meeting. But before he does, Helena says, you know, he's trying to tell her not to worry. And she says, I'm not worried about dragons, rats. She's scared of rats. So that's her being a seer, and the people around her not really understanding what she's saying and not taking her seriously. And that will come back to hurt them in a major, major way. And so then we next cut to the throne room at King's Landing, and we've got Aegon, and he's hearing petitions. And again, this is another scene where he is being somewhat playful, but he's also listening to the small folk. And Otto tries to rebuff him there and exert control over King Aegon. But ultimately, Otto loses that battle as Aegon meets another character that you need to pay attention to, and that is in the form of one Hugh. He announces his name is Hugh, and he's a smith, and they're building scorpion weapons for Team Green, and he needs to be paid in advance because they're struggling to make the weapons. And in that sense, Otto realizes that he's not going to win this debate with Aegon, and he backs off. And so you're starting to see Aegon's character being fleshed out. He is listening to the small folk. He's starting to form his opinions about the small council and the hand of the king. And those are things that are going to evolve over time. As Rhaenyra returns to Dragonstone, and she ends up basically saying that she wants Aemon Targaryen. She's listening to all the plans, and she makes the only line statement of the episode, which is, I want Aemon. And so I want Aemon Targaryen. And Daemon listens to that. He's on board with that. Now he's going to take action. He calls in Massaria. He gets contacts at King's Landing, and he makes his way to King's Landing to be able to execute on Rhaenyra's wishes. And while we're doing that, we have what I think is the most powerful scene in the episode, which is Jace returns from the Vale and from the north, and he walks in to greet his mother, the queen, Rhaenyra, and he's trying to do his duty. He talks about that they've accomplished the alliance with House Aaron and House Stark, but as he's doing it, he ceases to become the prince of Dragonstone, and he becomes the son and the brother. His voice starts cracking, and Rhaenyra goes over crying. She hugs her son. It's the best moment of the episode by far, and you know, I think that that's something that we're going to see play out throughout the rest of the season with Jace. The actor has done a really good job in this first episode and the limited scenes that he's had, and so it bodes well for some of the development of Jace as we enter into the actual war itself with the Dance of the Dragons. And so as we deal with the funeral scene of Lucerys with Jace and his younger brother Joffrey there, and Rhaena and Baela Targaryen, we see them at the funeral scene, and we then cut to Daemon showing up in King's Landing, and he meets a City Watch character that leads him to a rat catcher. And we have something that we saw in season 1 when King Viserys' son died in childbirth. And we hear the rumor that Daemon from Massaria that said an heir for a day, but we never heard Daemon say that. It's implied. And we have the same thing again where he wants Aemon Targaryen killed by Blood and Cheese, the rat catcher, and the City Watch Guard. But when they say, well, what if we can't find Aemon Targaryen? He just stares at him. So it's implied that he's going to tell him a son for a son, but we don't hear him say that. And that goes into the mythos of, of Daemon Targaryen and how good or bad of a guy is he really. And so the last 15 or so minutes of the episode is setting up as Blood and Cheese enter into the sewer system going into the Red Keep. We see Aemon and Kristen Cole strategizing about the Riverlands and Harrenhal and how they're going to go about accomplishing victory. And they get interrupted by Otto. And that either saves Aemon's life or potentially saves Blood and Cheese from being killed. And so they find that Aemon's not in the room. They go into other chambers and they find Helena. And they put a knife to her neck. And they see two little children there. They can't really tell which one is a girl, which one's a boy. Helena ends up pointing. So she points, and they think that she's lying and that she's actually picking the girl. But Cheese ends up realizing that she's telling the truth, looks her in the eyes and says, no, she's telling the truth. And they end up killing the boy, the heir to the throne. And so, Jaehaerys dies, and Helena runs with her daughter out of the room, and ends up going into the chambers again. Kristen Cole and Alicent having sex, and this is the commander of the Kingsguard, and he's not watching the heir to the throne or the king. He's in bed with Alicent. That's punishable by death, and it's definitely shameful and dishonorable. But we already knew that about Kristen because it ties into the very beginning of the episode where Cregan Stark talks about duty and sacrifice and honor. At the end of the day, I think the show being released in June in the summer when people are on vacation and kids are out of school, that was a factor. Also being on Father's Day. And then the 2-year wait between season 1 and season 2, I think those were the biggest contributing factors to it being off by 22%. But keep in mind, if you look at the ratings and viewership of House of the Dragon season 1, it steadily grew throughout the season so that by the end of the season, people were binging, they were catching up and going back and watching the prior episodes. And it steadily built to around 30 million total viewers by the end of season 1. We'll keep track on where the ratings and the viewership is for House of the Dragon season 2 as we get through weeks 2 through 8. But I just wanted to cover the first episode and maybe some things that you missed. Let me know what you think. Leave us a comment, smash that like button. Most importantly, hit subscribe so we can continue to grow our channel. And TCB.